I'm Stephanie Corey, the co-founder of Link and Uplevel Ops, and today I'm joined by Atena Reyhani, who's the Chief Product Officer of ContractPodAI, and Tomas Suros, who's the Principal Sales Engineer. And we're going to be discussing security, training, and the privacy aspects of deploying GenAI in your legal tech stack. Welcome to you both. I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you, Steph.
Good to
Thank you
see
for
you.
having us.
You
Good
bet.
to
You
be
bet.
here.
Great. I also wanted to let the audience know that if you have any questions throughout this presentation, there's going to be a lot of new information, I think. So please feel free to send a chat. We'll try to get to those questions and try to work them into the talk today. Worst case scenario, the Contract Pod AI team can get back to you afterwards. We're going to try to capture all of your questions so that we can make sure that we answer everything, because this is such a new topic to so many of us. So I would love to get started now, if everybody's ready. You know, we've seen a lot of tech come and go, but and frankly, some of the tech was a little bit eye rolling. And I'm a little bit of a skeptic when it comes to, you know, this life-changing technology. And we heard about different things over the years that's going to change the way we work and all of that stuff. But I have to say, this is different. When it first came out and I saw what it could do, I really was pretty mind blown. And I've been saying that the introduction of generative AI into all of society, but certainly the legal tech space, is really a before and after moment for us in a way that we haven't seen maybe since the advent of the internet. I think this is that big. And I'd love to understand from you guys how you foresee, you know, the integration of Gen AI into our everyday practices and how it's going to impact businesses, and how does the opportunity landscape look like to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you put it, Steph, as before and after, because we are seeing a significant transformation for sure from the business perspective, and really looking at a lot of these transformations, not only from the data perspective, but also actions that are being taken and decisions that are being made at larger scale, and investment that are being made at larger scale. So definitely for a transformation from business perspective. And for as one of the examples, wanted to highlight here that in one of the surveys that were recently published, it was anticipated that 45% of the global CEOs are actually expecting changes to their business models in the next decade to stay viable in their market. And this is a very large number, and it's a global survey that was done, and it's prevalent to industries and is prevalent to the company sizes. This really speaks to the opportunity that there is in the market to also create value, right? So from the value perspective, from the impact on the processes perspective, also the opportunity is massive, and it's really the abundance of opportunities for creating efficiency using generative AI, from use cases like communication to contracting to procurement and more, really. So if we dive into this and zoom in a little bit further, there is even greater anticipated change in a shorter term period, in 1 to 3 years period. One of the examples is increase in the productivity and increase in the quality of products and services that organizations are going to offer to the market. Now, in this category, we are seeing it at ContractPod ourselves, and our customers are seeing and reporting significant increment in terms of the quality of their products and services also. So it's very, very interesting. And other anticipated impact and changes that we have here range from the increase in the intensity of competitive landscape, which completely makes sense, right? So when the quality of product and services increase and people are really having the tools that they need to really scale that up, it results in a better and more healthier, but more intense also competitive landscape across different industries. And all the way to the need of new skill set and tools for business continuity, and how people are going and organizations are going to not only create, but deliver value to their customers in the market.
And these stats seem pretty bullish. It surprised me when I first saw this slide that CEOs are certainly looking at this as it seems to be a positive change, right?
Absolutely. And we're seeing a lot of, in our direct communications with customers and partners and the market, we're seeing a lot of the evaluations and the initiatives that are coming top down from the C-suite, from the CEOs, to really explore the opportunities of applying Gen AI to create targeted business values.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, we just had a Link event in New York last week, and we were talking about this exact thing, that this is the first time in my career where I've seen either encouragement, sometimes pressure from the C-suite to look at certain technology and legal. They've never taken an interest in it before, and it's a pretty interesting time. So speaking of which, Atena, tell me, what do you think the impact will be on legal teams directly?
I think the legal work is going to be elevated using the technology. It's really going to help us to focus more on things that we like to do as legal professionals. We might not work any less hours during the day, but hopefully enjoy the work that we are doing a lot more by being able to really focus on client communication and interactions, to more legal strategic work, and being able to delegate more of those less complex and more repetitive work to AI, and kind of the reshape the type of the work that we are doing using AI. And we actually ask exact same question in one of our surveys from legal professionals to better understand what use cases they are applying Gen AI to today, and what are the benefits that they're seeing so far. And interestingly, use cases such as legal research or contract review and analytics, really summarizing contracts and synthesizing the information were amongst the top use cases that we saw people are using Gen AI for. And they are already communicating benefits such as improving the quality of the output in comparison to more of a low AI enabled type of analysis that they were doing. Because like in the market, there was a mix, a lot of people have already started looking into before Gen AI, going back to your before and after, love that analogy. But before Gen AI, still there were people who were using AI for, bringing in visibility to their contracts and the data in the of the organization in particular systems. But this is the functionalities and the technology is taking that to the next level to create that next level analysis and provide those tools. So they're reporting increase in the quality, efficiency, a lot of improvement in terms of collaboration and data-driven decision making.
Yeah. Yeah, the studies that are coming out are pretty impressive. And like you were saying, I mean, the machine learning, the old AI that we talk about, it was still, transformative in many ways, right? Like nobody's sitting in a conference room reading through bankers' boxes of documents anymore for discovery or due diligence. but it required so much effort, and it required, the right volume so that it merited the big investment, because it was very, very expensive. And the training, you needed all that volume to actually train these systems. And so I think this is so accessible, and not just accessible to legal departments, but as mere mortals, right? Like writing this stuff on our own. And some of the use cases that we've heard, I talked to somebody, and I won't call out any names in case she's here on the webinar, but she used Gen AI for what I thought was pretty brilliant. She was interviewing for a job, and so she fed into, her chat GPT all of the LinkedIn posts by the person that she was going to be interviewing with, and their comments and content and everything. And basically trained it into, how do I answer certain interview questions that this person's going to relate to. And I thought that was such a great use case of, like, really, because when you speak to somebody in their language and you're using things that resonate with them, obviously you're going to click with them better. So I thought that was super brilliant. I've used it to write letters of recommendation. We've actually built GPTs. We're at Up Level, we're not in the business of building tech or anything, but GPTs to kind of do that knowledge management, where it will answer basic policy questions, like, here's our policy on blah blah blah, and it will answer questions for you. So even if you don't have, the accessibility to a very big expensive tech, like, you can do little things with this that will change your everyday, ways of, I don't have to sit and start with a blank document. I can, like, have a first draft that's really, really good. And so I think, it's a game changer for all of us.
That's brilliant. Yes, I think it's really democratizing the access to the assistant technology in so many different domains.
Exactly. So tell us about, because you guys are doing something interesting and different, and I know you're going to dive into that. You've gone well beyond just integrating, Gen AI into your contracting platform. You guys are doing something different. I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll let you get there in your own pace. But tell us some of the things that you've been doing with your clients that maybe have, changed the way they work or transformed something for them.
Absolutely. And we have many examples because Leah, our legal Gen AI solution, comes with a collection of out-of-the-box legal applications that we will speak about it in depth a little, shortly. So we have, from the customer perspective, to answer your question, there have been many examples. One example in particular is one of our customers using Leah for analyzing documents related to portfolio companies. This is one of the largest, it's a live project, one of the largest investment firms with over 500 portfolio companies, using Leah for their ongoing legal analysis of documents. These are, what we're talking about is large number of interconnected documents that are continuously changing. And we are not only on regular basis for every single portfolio company looking to answer some questions for SEC reporting, but synthesizing information and then driving very complex legal analysis for the driving conclusion, right? So before incorporating Gen AI, they were engaging a large number of senior legal resources to be able to do this for every portfolio company on regular basis. And with incorporation of Gen AI and using Leah to be able to do the work, now they are creating efficiency with really, the increase in the quality of the output at a scale. Right. They also reported that they are now decreasing the external costs at the same time increasing internal capacity to be able to do more strategic work. Now, this is just one of the examples. What they are using is one of applications of Leah called Leah Discovery, but also using other customers, other organizations are reporting very impressive output and outcome of incorporating GenAI by using other applications that Leah has for redlining, extract, even help desk, and other applications.
And yeah, that's interesting. And I know you're going to talk about, the domain specific versions of LLMs, and I think people will be interested to hear that. Tell us, maybe start with the evolution of LLMs, these large language models, in case anybody doesn't know what that stands for, and explain that to us, and about what they are, how they're built and developed, and what that means, and maybe if there are any barriers or complications with them, and so that people just, let's start with the basics.
Absolutely. Look, all of the stats that we looked at, so far in the conversation so far is really indicative of time to take action for deploying Gen AI into our work, into our businesses to really create targeted values. What is important also is that we incorporate and deploy Gen AI into our businesses in an ethical and responsible way, right? So for that, we really need to take a look at that technology and the evolution that you mentioned, right? So from the technology perspective, the large language models and Gen AI and applications and products that were created in conjunction of that also went through an evolution already within the last 18 months to 2 years, right? So we started in the market by looking at products that were using a single large language model or horizontal model for very targeted tasks, right? And as the complexity of the use cases that we were going after increased, then that shifted to a multi large language model strategy, fit for purpose or map for purpose. And now, as we're looking at even further complexity in the use cases that we're going to after, especially solving for domain specific problems like incorporating Gen AI for legal, we are looking at a need for models with a specialized expertise that are embedded within the solution with very well defined legal frameworks to basically make sure that not only we create comprehensive and accurate output, but output that is relevant and is within the legal guide rails to create targeted value and prevent any potential risk that comes with Gen AI.
Okay, so as I understand it, you can take a standing LLM, which is available on the marketplace, which is what you guys have done, and built these guardrails around it to make sure that it's responsive to the legal industry. So for instance, you could do that for doctors could use it to answer medical questions. They could build one for medicine. Engineers could use one for engineering. So you could take one that's already built, like an OpenAI, and then put these guardrails around it to make it domain specific. Am I explaining that the right way?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Now, what is important to note is that if we add features and functionality in product or directly go to one or a couple of horizontal models, when I say horizontal models, like directly to go to OpenAI or directly go to Google and just bring it in without that additional solution layer frameworks and customer specific rules and information, so on and so forth. If we do that, we have seen that these are not sufficient for creating sustainable and targeted value for organizations, for solving specifically in our context and for solving legal problems. We need models that have specialized expertise and they are within that solution layer so that we can add on customer-specific rules and information. We can add on the legal framework that we further guide those horizontal models of what to do and within what framework they need to work on.
Right. So, yeah, tell us more about then those domain specific models and how they outperform the general like publicly available multi-purpose LLMs, I guess you would
Yeah.
kind of call it, because I think what you're saying, and I could be way wrong here, but if you're building your own LLM, that's something that you have to keep constantly trained and updated. But is it different if you instead just build the guardrails around an LLM that's already existing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you're absolutely correct. Now, let's actually think about it this way. When we onboard generative AI in legal use cases, we're almost mimicking the way legal works, right? So if we go like we have some legal project and we have some legal tasks. When we hire legal resources, we hire them based on subject matter expertise, right? And that is, domain specific, of course. It's industry specific, is jurisdiction or jurisdiction specific, or sometimes multi-jurisdiction, so on and so forth, right? That is a hiring process, right? Then there is a training and onboarding. So basically, their analysis and recommendation and legal counsel is based on our organization's best practices, policies, procedures, what are relevant regulatory requirements to us, right? And then they use all of that information on top of their specialized expertise to provide their counsel. It's exactly the same when we onboard GenAI. So in onboarding GenAI, we need legal with a specialized expertise. And then we need the solution layer that actually allows us to create the legal framework around it to further instruct AI. What is the framework that they are behaving within? And you need a solution layer that allows the customer in the organization to input create their custom models and input their rules of business and input their organization's relevant information so that collectively we can create that comprehensive and accurate, but especially relevant recommendation to the organization so that we can create actual value.
So it's beyond just customizing it specific to the legal industry. So you put the legal guardrails around it, but then also further enhancing that to be client, company, whatever specific.
Absolutely, yeah. That additional rules and information at the solution layer really just makes the AI relevant to a particular organization. So let's think about it from different use cases perspective. If we have, let's say, a red line requirement, right? So if the general red line recommendations would most of the time not make a targeted value or not actually be relevant to an organization's need. We actually need to create custom rules and information to further guide the AI, right? Or when we are creating a help desk, for example, for customers for across the board to bring in conversational user experience to surface their policies, procedures, regulatory requirements, so on and so forth, right? So then we actually need those solution layers to be able to further guide AI and provide those additional layer of information to AI. And the need of each of the use cases are different, right? So when it comes to AI, there is not one size fit all. We actually, some of the use cases require different type of AI models to solve for that, particular problem. And sometimes you need multiple to work as a team to solve a particular use case.
Yeah. Interesting. So it because, and that's one of the things that I was so intrigued by what you guys are doing because it's so different. Again, I said this earlier in our conversation. It's different than just, okay, we're incorporating it into our you guys have a robust AI contracting tool. You've been doing that for years now. But you've done so much more than just build this into contracting. What you're saying is it's a company slash department specific LLM that people can deploy that will also do some of the things that we talked about earlier when we were talking about use cases, like answering company policy questions, being kind of that front door to legal for some of the basic self-service client enablement stuff that we're always, you talked about lawyers, you didn't use these words, but how I envisioned it is lawyers on the hamster wheel, because we see it all the time, right? They have so much work to do. And like you said, maybe you kind of made a joke that maybe they won't work less hours, they'll still be working so many hours in the day, but maybe they'll get their nights off, which would be such a fabulous treat for all of us, right? But they're on a hamster wheel of doing, all of us are, by the way, operations professionals too, repetitive tasks, doing things over and over again. And so to the extent that we can find ways to, no, you just go here and it will answer your questions, it'll get you to the template, but do it in a better way than we've done it in the past, right? Like before, we had some automation tools that did that and certainly were a great improvement than having a lawyer answer the same question over and over again. But they were tough to deploy. It was more challenging, I'll put it that way. And now you've got something that can be trained on everything. You've got policies, procedures, all of the all current FAQs, top 10 lists, trainings, whatever. It will take that and answer those questions. So this is well beyond contracting, I guess, is my very long-winded way of saying that, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And then, so I mentioned that when it comes to AI, there is no one size fit all. So we see like AI models and different use cases being matched and from different angles. So to dive into that a little bit more, I wanted to share a couple of different important aspects that is very important when we are evaluating what are the use cases that we are going to go after, because the criteria of each use case is very different, and what are the tools that we need to really match for that and solve for those particular use cases, right? So from our experience, when we were building Leah, as we were looking at the spectrum of the legal use cases, that some of it we already spoke about, we saw the need of creating a GenAI ecosystem for Leah that has flexibility and scalability from those different angles, right? So, and that is model complexity, what type of architecture and engineering techniques that we need to really solve for those problems, right? And those architecture and engineering techniques is that the solution layer comes on top of the models, even with the expert models, right, to be able to solve for different type of problems. So as a result, the GenAI ecosystem for Leah comes with a collection of Leah models that are targeted and that can be mapped to the need of the use case based on what is the complexity need that we have for this particular use case. What are the model expertise that we need for these use cases? What's the scale of the knowledge base that we are going to go after? What is the velocity needs? Like, do we need fast answer? Do we need more in-depth analysis that goes and does like in-depth legal review? These are very important when we are taking a look at a use case like help desk, or another use case that is more legal analysis, right? So the need of the use case is different, and you need different expertise, velocity needs, and the scale needs to really go after them. And the way that is solutionized is by combining the models with the engineering and the architecture, right? So I mentioned that we have the need for expert models, right? So for some of the use cases, we actually needed legal specific large language models. So through some of the partnerships, like one example is a partnership that we have with Google, we created legal specific large language models. And it really embedded all of these. So you have best-in-class large language models, you have legal specific large language models combined with engineering techniques in the solution layer to really solve for the spectrum of legal use cases that we can apply to our work in our organizations.
Well, and further to that, can you talk a little bit about like the safety aspects and making sure, you're not getting hallucinations and just the ethics around it too? Tell us a little bit about the things we need to be thinking about, as we deploy these tools.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On the model. So I mentioned we have all of the models embedded within the solution, right? So then we combine at the we have spoken about this already, but just to reiterate to get to the data protection at the solution layer, we combine these out of the box models with the embedded frameworks that we spoke about and customer specific models that are customers, rules, and information, so on and so forth. We have created a smart user interface that is also AI driven for our customers to be able to further instruct AI on what to do. So as collectively, this gives our customers the reliable AI they need, because all of the recommendations are either precedence-based or rule-based and within the context of what they need for their business. Now, from data protection perspective, for us, we have for each customer a secure and dedicated environment that all of their legal documentation and organizational information is within that secure environment, only accessible by their users, that they have access to the environment. And the AI processes the information but doesn't retain or learn from customer information. And that ensures that customer data is protected. Now, you also asked about hallucination. So that is very, very great question. It's one of the areas to think about and evaluate as you're evaluating the tools. And the key for minimizing hallucination is really at the solution layer also, right? So it's seamless to the users, but very embedded within the solution. There are engineering techniques. But I'm going to say a couple of examples of technical words, but it's query expansion to the mechanisms and retry mechanisms, so on and so forth, and other engineering techniques that are already incorporated within the solution to minimize hallucination, right? And then also that information and the rule that we spoke about that is ingested within the solution layer gives the further instruction to AI to also help to minimize the hallucination.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, and I think that's still really, really top of mind for people, right? Because it's probably the question I get asked most frequently about how do we protect our data? How do we, and you hear all of the horror stories from people using it the wrong way. So it's top of mind for legal departments,
It
certainly.
is. Yeah, it is
Mhm.
definitely. It's same on our side. We hear these questions all the time, and it's a right question to ask.
Yeah, agreed. And speaking of, asking the right questions, talk to me about actual practice, incorporating it into practice. What should legal ops professionals and legal departments be thinking about in order to adopt this into their daily routine?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say time to value is the key. We are seeing a lot of organizations that are taking a look at evaluating what are the legal use cases that they can incorporate into their business to create targeted ROI and fast ROI. And in a kind of response to that customer needs, as an example, when we were solutionizing for Leah, we created it with all of those out-of-the-box applications, and we created it in a way that is very straightforward and easy to use, with the goal that our customers and people in the market, that they can start onboarding GenAI into their business with as low of a lift and investment as possible to see the result at the beginning, right? And to be able to create value and stay competitive. Then, of course, there are more customized use cases, and they are more like, let's now go create like our custom rules and custom models, so on and so forth, and then take it to the next step, and then eventually kind of expand that across the board to embed the technology into all of the work streams. But taking this one step at a time and being able to create value fast, it's one thing that we are seeing a lot of people are also looking at, and is showing impressive results.
In our, it's funny that you say that, because in our consulting work, this, I would say, past 12 months, more than any time in my career, in-house or consulting, we've been asked for exactly what you're describing. Like, we don't want to wait. I mean, not even like 2 months. They want instant results. I don't know if it's a result of like, now we all have short attention spans, and we just want blips. We just want very quick hits. And more than ever, I've really seen that around, deployments. And I agree with you. I think this is a great way to, you can answer a certain question, or have, a certain, I love the idea of the legal front door help desk kind of a thing. And you could get that up and running pretty quickly, and not even necessarily absolutely everything, but doing like, okay, just on this, one policy, let's start there. It's going to answer all the questions on this. And it's potentially really powerful, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
mhm.
And the opportunities are so much, right? There are so many of those lower complexity use cases, but those are like, it is high volume, right?
Yeah,
It
exactly. Like,
creates so much impact.
it is. And when I learned early on in my career, not that early, like when you look at the legal matters that legal departments deal with, it's kind of a bell curve, but with a very, very, very long tail. So not really a bell, right? Like, it has that. And so if you, yeah, okay, there's big matters that lawyers need to deal with, but then this whole long tail eats up a lot of time for legal departments. So if you can solve for that very long tail, I mean, you're creating more space for them to work on the big deals, right? I should make a
Exactly.
slide on that. Yeah, that's yeah.
Can imagine that.
Um,
Exactly.
imagine that. Tell
Exactly.
us about like because I do think it is going to affect the makeup of the department. I get asked a lot. Of course, people are nervous about this, right? Like, is this going to completely change the structure of the department, the skill sets of the department? I don't think we're going to see. It's not going to be like, oh, all of a sudden these big departments are laying off half of their teams or whatever. It's not going to be like that. I think it is going to be a progression of a different type of hiring and looking for different types of skills, and lawyers having to learn new skills. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And from the skill set perspective, really, I would focus on understanding the technology and understanding the opportunities to upscale our daily work and upscale the work of our departments and organization. And also understanding the risk and limitations of AI if we don't have the right tools, right? So in incorporating Gen AI to legal, having the right tool is really the key, and understanding what use cases do we want to solve for, and what tools do we need to solve for those particular use cases is very important, right? So there are tools in the market that they have a collection of AI agents or expert models that can, solve for a larger array of legal use cases. There are other tools that are very targeted for particular use cases. So I would really spend the time to understand the technology opportunity and identify what are the areas of your work is it that you want to prioritize to upscale, and then find the right tools to be able to do so. And
So
also,
focus on the use cases first, really, Atena, right? Like understand
absolutely.
why you need these tools before you jump into it.
Exactly, exactly. And then on the other hand, I talked about understanding the risk and the limitations. Again, depending on what you're trying to do, also evaluate what the risk of not having the right tool are going to be, or just, if you're thinking about directly going to general available horizontal models, think about things that we spoke about today, like hallucination, or not having relevance to result to legal or your particular organization. There are other things like bias, and all those are going to be impacting the result and the recommendations that you're going from GenAI, and then eventually impacting the output of the work.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because we talk about the skills. At the beginning of the emergence of general availability of GenAI, there was this perception that now everyone needs to be a prompt engineer and needs to communicate with the horizontal models in the schema that they perform the best. I want to highlight that because that was due to limitation of the availability of products in the market that could actually bring that solution layer to us, so that we could seamlessly interact and engage like underlying models, and actually translate that not only to conversation but translate it to features within the solution layer. Of course, there is this emerged role as a prompt engineer or legal prompt engineer. If you want to go design solutions for a legal tech, of course, that is definitely a path. But to incorporate GenAI to legal in your department, in your organization, you don't need to be expert in AI. But you need to have the right tools and understand the use case and understand the applications of AI, how it can help you to solve for those particular legal problems.
Exactly. And one of the things we've been doing, even in our little consulting business, is we use an LLM and we've trained it on all of the advice we've given clients over the years. And it's been so helpful just to say, like query the system, like what do we typically recommend here or there, rather than trying to think, oh yeah, we had this issue 2 years ago or whatever, you know what I mean? And what we found is querying is important, prompting, in terms of it will give you a different result if you ask a question a certain way. And so it's helpful. Well, the whole team kind of works on it, right? Like where we say, well, if you ask it this way, it'll do this or that. And so there is a learning with it and how to ask questions. But I agree with you. I think this is the worst that I always say that this is the worst the tech is going to be right now. It's only going to get better. And I think it really is going to move to very natural language where anybody can ask it in a slightly different way and you're still going to get a really good result.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Well, great. Atena, this was incredibly helpful. I really enjoyed and learned a lot from the conversation. I hope the audience did, but I think Tomas, if I'm not mistaken, well, it's your time to be in the spotlight and show us a little bit about the tool.
Yeah, let's jump in.
All right. I will share my screen with Leah up and running.
Right.
Um,
And just to really drive this point home, Leah
yep,
is something that you can buy separately. It's not like you have to buy, you can buy this in modules, right? Am I correct?
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely. Leah is a legal assistant. And in essence, it's a generative AI powered platform with a number of different applications, as we're seeing here on screen, that are really designed to solve for specific problems. Or as you were discussing earlier, kind of practical use cases and how we've created interfaces that tap into the generative AI and provide a quick way to get results. And during our time today, I'll show you a couple of the applications. The first one being Redline, which has very practical use cases in legal, as well as Help Desk that has maybe a broader sense of being able to connect individuals within the organization that need either legal or other important information, but provide that information in a accessible and natural language sense where the information is accurate, it's provided very quickly, and then, behind the scenes, an organization has the ability to stand up different help desks in order to provide pertinent but very specific information, as needed. All right. So the first application I'll jump into is Redline, and I'm now in Leah, and I've identified or I've created a project, and a project is an incoming document, let's say, that I've identified with the goal being that the AI will help me review this document. If I click draft red lines, it asks me who I am, like who we are in the agreement. And this can be important if it's our document, let's say that's been marked up by a third party, or a third party agreement that's come in. I'm able to identify who we are within the agreement. And then I can even select a model so that the way that the AI is guided in order to assess risk and provide the recommendations, how to remediate, reduce the risk, perhaps increase favorability as needed. The goal of this system is to kind of have a tool that allows us to provide meaningful information and then very quickly receive the AI's review of all four corners of this brand new document using our guidance to provide a risk score. So right away, I have a concept of the current language in this agreement. Does it suit us or not? Providing a risk insight, almost kind of a summary of what language within this agreement does or doesn't benefit us, doesn't really match our desired outcomes. And then importantly, a breakdown of each of the clauses and language within this agreement that has a legal effect. It's green, yellow, red kind of risk level, and then an AI-based risk analysis. So right away, I've taken an incoming document and I've had the AI provide for me meaningful review and kind of a granular way of understanding the current language and how it may affect us. Now we call this a risk report. So I'm able to kind of pull out this report. I can share it with my colleagues. I can use it to triage, really delegate who and what happens next with this document. But the other button that I'll point out, which I think a lot of people really recognize as a key benefit from using a tool like this, is to have the AI not only do the risk analysis, the review of the document, but to then provide for me a version of the document with the recommended changes inserted as if my legal assistant or my colleague had done that type of work on this document. So I'll switch over and show an example of this same agreement. I'm now in Word and I have my Leah add-in, my Word add-in available. You'll notice that as if a colleague of mine have made these changes, I have the modifications, new language added, and adjustments, edits made that I can review very quickly. Now I'm in Word. I have all the tools I'm familiar with, and many attorneys spend a great deal of their daily practice using this tool to review documents. So I'm now able to kind of go through and change by change, have visibility into the recommended language, a review of the risk analysis, so the conclusion of Leah in its suggestion of this change. And then another thing that I think is very important, and it's the rationale. So I now have access in line with a change made in this document, the reasoning that the AI used to actually perform the risk analysis and reach the situation where it's made this suggested change for me. Now it's not set in stone. I can accept it as is. I can continue to edit it based on my needs in the moment. But as I kind of make my way through this document, I now have quick access to an AI-based review and modification. So right away, I'm more efficient in that
Oh, now
I'm reviewing changes. Was there a question? Let me know if there's a question going forward.
Yeah, actually,
so-
Tomas, there was a question from the audience that she wanted to know if the embedded comments for the content from the rationale in the add-in.
Are they, I'm sorry, the question is, are the analysis and the rationale embedded in the document?
Yeah, are the embedded comments from the rationale in the add-in?
That's a great question. So that's an option available to you. Many organizations, when they're doing kind of internal review, they'll have this rationale shared, and available in the add-in. Obviously, that's something that you can turn off or suppress in any version of this document that you would share, let's say, with an external party, where the rationale and the risk analysis would be more internal information, not something that you would want to share with the third party.
Tomas, I'm so sorry. I lost internet for a second and was
Oh, that's
gone for
okay.
a minute. But and so forgive me if you've already answered this, but do you train this using a playbook that you've already built, or how does that happen?
It's a great question. So, and it's an important question because obviously one size doesn't fit all. Leah does have frameworks for specific types of use cases, but in the vast majority of situations, we will work with somebody who's kind of bringing a Leah redline into their environment. And I'll show you in a moment how the frameworks, the models that I showed you earlier that you're able to select, that guidance that that you're giving Leah in how to do this type of review and remediation, that's something that you have a lot of control over. And I'll be able to show you that very quickly in a moment. And the final thing maybe I'll show you here in Word is there's also a redline assist prompt that I find useful. And the concept of the redline assist prompt is, as I'm reviewing kind of Leah's recommended modifications for this document, I'm also, with my kind of expertise or kind of current understanding of the negotiation or the positions of the parties, I'm able to ask Leah to create a new version of its recommendations. So whether I want mutuality or maybe an increased, favorable revision, or even kind of an improved enforcement mechanism. So a little bit more specificity about how a change should be made. I'm able to ask that on the fly and have the generative AI strength of Leah present to me an alternative version of the recommended change. So I almost think of it as like a dial that you can select if a specific recommendation does not match the current situation, you're able to ask for another version of it, which is just another way that generative AI can assist an attorney in reviewing an agreement, both on kind of general recommendations, and then with specificity in any session, you have this capability, this redline assist available to you.
And Thomas, just quickly, there was a little bit more context on the comments about the questions earlier. Question is, where are the comments coming from? And to answer that, Sally, the comments are generated by Leah explaining why she's recommending what she's recommending. So basically, in defining the rules that we spoke about for custom models for these, like let's say right now MSA, we have an MSA rule book in custom model, and Leah refers to those rules to recommend the changes that she is making. And then for each and every change, and you can see some of those changes are very surgically here because it's applying the rules, it's not swiping any language, right? So so after the red line recommendation is done, she's also explaining why she's recommending each of the rules. It's not based on like a library of comments, or the rationale is fully generated by Leah to explain the rationale for your full visibility of why those red line recommendations are made.
And Sally's saying, just trying to get the bubbles in the word margin up, and so she can see if it's the same. So is it the same as what's on? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And then Steph, to your comment earlier about how, well, I think it was a question also from the audience, how this type of review can be specific, let's say to a scenario, a business partner, or even a type of agreement. in the settings section of Leah, I'm able in the Redline app, I'm able to create models. So either using an organization's golden language, maybe your version of an agreement of this type, you're able to have the AI reverse engineer from that all of the different clauses and how internally we would want Leah to perform its risk review and remediation, the recommendations. So if we take a look at one of these, limitation for liability, for instance, here's an example of a set of rules. In essence, each of these is a prompt that allows you to really create a very specific way that Leah would look at exclusion for certain damages or a cap on total liability and perform the review and kind of the risk analysis in the exact way or the precise way that you would want internally to ensure that from a consistency and an accuracy standpoint, Leah is performing that review that we showed you earlier, following your guidance. And your guidance means that you're able to come into a model like we're showing you here and have visibility not only into exactly how that review happens, but you have access to the language. So in the future, should you need to adjust or optimize or fine tune or tweak your, inside your Leah environment, the way that that type of review in a specific topic is performed is something that you have transparency, visibility, and control over. Then, of course, any changes you need to make, you update the model, and then going forward, you have full confidence that Leah is being guided with your guardrails and your specificity in the type of results and the outcomes that you need. All right,
That's great.
so that was a very quick, overview, but that's the concept of Redline, right? The ability for any types of documents that you may need, your models, and the type of risk reporting, and then in many instances, just show me a draft of this document with our model applied and the recommendations in line.
And Tomas, I just want to be cognizant of time because we scheduled the webinar and we're coming up on the hour. If you guys have a couple of minutes to stay after, I have a few minutes before my next meeting starts. So I'm happy to stay on in case anybody wants to stick around and ask any questions. So we'll keep going for a few minutes, and of course, recognizing that many of you will have to drop off. But Sally has another good question about sorry, I just lost it. Oh, can you drag and drop those rules from one framework to another? Or are you recreating it within each framework?
I like that question. Yes, absolutely. And in the actual kind of framework, and I'll jump back in there. In the model itself, you have access to obviously all the individual components, but you are able to add rules, but also export rules. So I think to your question, the ability to have maybe a trunk that is similar, let's say, for how our organization manages certain incoming documents, but certain departments or regionally, globally, however kind of you may need that to vary, you're able to take an existing trunk and then create branches that would be specific for different situations. And and one of the use cases I've experienced with our clients is certain business partners. You may have a different way of reviewing agreements with them versus a more general, kind of agreement with somebody who is either new, in your business relationship. But you're able, a short answer is yes, absolutely. You can take your existing trunk and build branches of it as needed to better reflect different scenarios that you would anticipate going forward.
Great. Yeah, good. This recording is going to go out to everybody, so don't worry. You'll get these if you want to. If you've got to go and want to listen to the, I guess it's what do they call it, at the after hours party or whatever. But if anybody else has any questions, Sally, great questions. Thank you for that. That's all really good. Oh, Sally wants to know what's behind. You should come off mute. What's behind the playbook button?
Yeah, this tech is great. I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
No, I mean, actually, there's so many different apps to really, to go through. Playbook is a great way to have the AI create for you a nicely formatted document with your source materials, that may be unstructured to a certain extent. It's a tool that where generative AI creates for you your policies and procedures document. So, that's a quick way of describing maybe what Playbook would provide. And And Steph, you let me know kind of in the interest of time. Help Desk was another, kind of app that I wanted to show you very quickly. It's something that we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we're over time.
We're
Thank
already
you,
over.
everyone who joined. We so appreciate it. But we may as well. We have a few minutes, so let's keep going, Tomas. And then if people can stick around, great. And if not, we have the recording that they can watch. But yeah, I would personally love to see that that functionality, because we get, we're constantly again trying to get the lawyers off the hamster wheel. So whatever we can do to create space, and this is a space saver.
Absolutely. And in fact, this is another kind of, Gen AI powered tool, with the goal being that it provides kind of first level legal help desk with interactive access to company standards, negotiation strategies, HR policies, regulations, regulatory insights, really depending on the need. Because
Yeah,
similar,
Tomas, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's as
no, that's right.
simple as like we get questions on, can I, so often, like, what are my financial obligations? Can I accept this gift? Can
That's
I go
right.
out to dinner with this vendor? Just simple things where doing a search right now might get you to the right policy. Maybe not though, because the searches are they're just not good. And then the employee has to like read it and interpret it. It's just not efficient,
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Absolutely. How about we actually ask that exact question from Leah? We have a policy help desk.
Yeah. So I'm in the
Can we accept
policy
it?
help desk.
Great.
Yeah. And I can ask, I'll keep it simple. But nice thing about this, natural language, it parses meaning from your question, and the policy, the actual information that Leah will go and, understanding the meaning or the need of your question, will actually pull from the organization's prepared help desk the appropriate information. And Steph, you bring up a good point where I could pose this question to the web or other, maybe Gen AI platforms. The problem is it's not structured. It's not specific to our organization, where what we receive very quickly here is Leah's response from this help desk, where very comprehensively ABC Inc. employees are under a zero gift rule, right? And then also, specificity about, the rules and what can or can't be done. I think this is exactly to your point. The other thing that I like to point out here is it cites to the sources. So internal documents that maybe provide additional context, or from a training standpoint might be the next step going forward. It's not just here's the answer, it's here's the answer and here's where I found it if you want to kind of continue your search. The other thing I want to point out,
I assume can probably
yeah.
set it up to, and now contact legal if you have more questions or whatever. Here's a link to do that. But it sounds like the way you've designed it is locked down, so it can't go out, and that's where hallucination risk comes in, right? Where it goes out and reviews
Right. And
other
it's not pulling
documents.
from, exactly. It's not pulling from dated materials or regulations that no longer apply or that were superseded. Like that's the problem with, it's not just hallucinations. There's no context of our need or our guardrails. But Leah has done that with this specific answer. And I'll point out a couple of other things in the interface. So the natural language is conversational. I can do follow-up questions. I can, be clueless in using the appropriate terms, and Leah will do its best efforts to kind of connect me to the appropriate information. The other aspect of the interface is if I want a deeper analysis, if I need more information, I have two layers, let's say. The first one is meant to very quickly provide me the answer and meaningful information about what I'm asking for in that moment. But if I needed more understanding of nuance or scenarios or other information that may be in the system, I can literally click to have a deep model view or review of the question I asked. So if and when I need deeper analysis, it's available to me. So we have a speed, kind of responsive way of providing the answer, and then a deeper, dive that provides me more meaningful understanding of the why or the how behind the answer. And the other thing that's key, and stuff this goes to kind of your comment earlier, is the AI is even helpful in providing questions I may want to ask in going forward. So I don't need to be an expert, right? This doesn't need to be my domain, or I don't need subject matter familiarity, really. Instead, I get an initial answer, I get a deeper, analysis if I'm interested, and I also have the AI providing guidance as to what other information may be useful for me in this particular instance.
Yeah.
So it's just really designed to kind of unlock that information.
Yeah, those are good questions, actually, the follow-up questions.
Yep.
Well, that's fantastic. I don't know if anybody else has any follow-up questions, but this was super helpful. I really enjoyed this. All right. Well, thank you, Tomas and Atena. Really appreciate having you here today. And like we said, we'll follow up with the recording for folks. And I certainly learned a lot today, and I hope everybody else did too. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.